Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, the RTX 4060 was released in May of 2023 by Nvidia, and it was released as a performance segment graphics card. This was a very controversial statement in itself. A lot of people loved the card, a lot of people hated it, and it seemed like a lot more people hated this card than loved it. And the main reason that happened, it kind of tied hand in hand to the MSRP launch price of $299. Now, it does support all the most recent features like PCI Express 4.0, it's on an 8X interface, has 8GB of GDDR6, pretty decent GPU frequency of 1830 MHz, and then the memory is also running at 2125 MHz. This card is actually, it was sitting in such a weird spot, and it still does today. It was sitting around the range of a 2080 Super and a RTX 2070 Super. It performs about exactly as much as a 2080. I'm sorry. AMD equivalents around there are going to be like the 7600 XT, the RX 7600, and the 6650 XT. As you probably already know, the 40 series of RTX GPUs are the successors to the 30 series, and the 30 series was the predecessor. But there's a lot of weird generational points in here where the 3070s and the 70 Ti's, they perform a lot better than 4060 Ti's and 4060s, which is really weird. And there's even 3060s and 3060 Ti's that perform better than the 4060 equivalents. I know that sounds a little complicated, but you can replay that and you can hear again. So it just really leaves the 4060 in this weird spot. Is it a high-end card? Is it an entry level? Is it a mid-range? Nobody really knows, because the 4060 is technically the lowest of the lineup in the 40 series cards. There's other laptop variants, but those don't really count. We're not talking about that. We are just talking about desktop variants, because they are king. But anyways, we have this Zotac RTX 4060 on hand. We're going to be testing it on a couple games, throw some benchmarks at it, and we're going to show you how it stacks up about a year and a half later. We purchased this for $299 MSRP about a couple months after the release, so it's pretty normal to get it for that price at the time. If you could have gotten it for any less, and nowadays too, if you can get it for any less, it's obviously going to be a better deal, but $299 was just the regular price we were paying at that time. We're also pairing this with a i7-10700 by Intel. It's an 8-core, 16-threaded CPU that provides as much as you're going to need for today's gaming. You don't need none of these 12th gen, 13th gen CPUs. Also, anything Ryzen is going to be fine. You have like a 3600 or you have a Ryzen 7 2700. It's going to be about the same performance. So the CPU is not overkill, and it's not going to be bottlenecking anything at all. We're also pairing it with 16GB of 3200 megatransfers DDR4. This is going to be your standard, your little sweet spot in any type of gaming machine you have. And for the motherboard, we have an X variant or something. It's a Gundam motherboard. I forgot what kind of motherboard it was, but it's just everything stock, no overclocking. There's nothing tweaked to any of the cards. We're going to be running at stock speed for the 4060. I said cards, I'm sorry, but I meant parts. The only thing that's kind of overclocked is the XMP, which is the RAM, but you're going to be fine. That's what most people are going to be doing on your rig anyways. And starting off with Fortnite, it's not a bad experience by any means. We're running at 1080p performance mode, all low settings, epic view distance, 100% render resolution. Always want to run 1920 by 1080, no FSR, no 70% scale. I don't like doing any of that. But as you can see, we're running around 200 FPS, even higher most of the time. The average is going to say about 180 right there. Fortnite is, of course, a more CPU-bound game. As you guys can kind of see, the temperature for the i7 is around like 78, 77, maybe 80, just around those temperatures, because it's deriving from the CPU more. While those higher clock speeds on a 4060 do help, you can kind of achieve almost the same FPS with something like a 1080 or a 2060. But that 4060 does give you that little boost towards the higher 200 FPS. Moving on to Warzone, we are getting into a more GPU bound situation. This is at 1920 by 1080p ultra settings. Like I said, any CPU is going to work fine, and we are not using any FSR, no render resolution, no frame generation. I like to keep it very vanilla. I don't know, that's the best way you could put it nowadays with this FSR crap. I hate that. But we're running around 80, 90 FPS in the 70s, nothing ever below 70. And sometimes you get even in the high, like 100, 120 FPS, just around that range. But this is going to run very great. It's not going to have a single problem. Your thermals are going to be a little bit higher, just because it's rendering that whole game in. That's what these BR games are nowadays, rendering this whole map. Also, as you guys might have noticed, this is Call of Duty Zombies Modern Warfare 3, but it is the same thing as Warzone. I'd argue it's even more intensive because of all the entities being rendered. About the same map, same size and everything, just running around shooting zombies. Pretty simple. I ended up enjoying it. I've never played it before until like last week. Just kind of found myself turning my brain off and just playing it. It's really fun. Now moving on to our last title, we have Overwatch 2, and we're playing this at 1080p, all low settings, the anti-aliasing's all the way down. The only thing that's high up is like the textures, they're on ultra, but that doesn't matter at all. We're running the very high 200s, low 300s for the FPS, and that's really going to help you in a shooter like this. It's very competitive if you need all those frames so you can get good tracking, as you can kind of see with the soldier gameplay, but most people, you're not going to see it on the screen on YouTube, you're just going to see it when you're playing. More FPS is going to allow you to see more things that are going on. And even if you even really want, you can play games like this. If this is going to be purely what you're playing is like esports titles, you can play them at 1440p and achieve just about the same FPS. In something like this, you'd only be dropping by like 15%, which is still super good. A very high refresh rate is exactly what you want to get going for this competitive experience. If you have like a 240Hz monitor too, you can just lock that on VSync and then get 240 FPS locked the entire time. But other than that, it takes it like a champ. This is very, very easy to play at high FPS. You're going to have a lot of fun. Now, in conclusion, should you get this graphics card? I would not entirely recommend it in this day and age. If you can get it for around $200 on the used market, which is a little bit of a stretch, maybe like $220, $230, it would be a great bargain. But at other points, when you're purchasing it for $250 and above, there are plenty of other cards that you can get you the same performance, the same amount of VRAM, the same ray tracing cores, the same FPS, basically all the same kind of stuff, and it's going to be even cheaper. Like I said, there's 7600s, there's 7600 XT, there's 6650 XTs. Those are all going to give you about the same performance, and they're going to be cheaper. I'm just recording this video to simply showcase the 4060 about a year later, just a little bit after a year of its launch, and showing you how it works today, how it's holding up, how everything's going, and it's about the same. It's pretty fabulous. If you've had a 4060 since the release and you paid MSRP for it, just $299, pat yourself on the back because you got a nice card and it's gonna last you a little while. Once you get towards the most recent architectures of things, it's obviously gonna last longer from that time going forward. But any GPU nowadays, it's gonna do good. It's gonna get you high FPS. This is obviously just the benchmark of the 4060. Now make sure, guys, leave a like if you liked the video, leave a dislike if you didn't. Make sure to comment. Tell me if you have a 4060 as well and how it's doing today, or whatever graphics card you may be running, even if it's a Quadro K620. But thank you guys and have a good day.